Picture this, it's March 3rd, 2017. The school day is coming to a close and you're super excited to get home and play Breath of the Wild on your Nintendo console. Not the new Nintendo console, just a Nintendo console. Yet, I didn't really have the money for a Nintendo Switch on launch, and that was fine. Years of being a Wii U owner builds you up a certain amount of copium, enough at least to declare this as playable. Actually, that's a bit of a lie. I did not find it playable in the slightest. In fact, I put it down and never touched it again until I had the Switch version. But if you've seen my Zelda videos, you know how that ended up going. I remember my uncle was a day one Switch adopter, and I acted really nonchalant about the whole thing. I was just like, yeah, the Switch is cool, but the Wii U still rocks. I can play Star Fox Zero and a surprisingly decent port of Black Ops 2 on this thing. What more could I want? Super Bomberman R? Yeah, no, secretly I was really jealous, and that jealousy only really grew as more games were released for the system. Slowly, though, don't get me wrong. That first few months of releases for the Switch wasn't the most enticing. Most of the good stuff was Wii U ports and then, like, I don't know, NBA Playgrounds or something. In July of that year, Splatoon 2 released, and a few months later in October came one of the biggest games in the Nintendo Switch's library. The Mummy Demastered, based on the hit 2017 film The Mummy starring Tom Cruise. Seeing videos about Super Mario Odyssey's launch on YouTube was really when my jealousy hit levels I couldn't comprehend anymore. And so, in January 2018, I finally raised the money to buy myself a Nintendo Switch, along with copies of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Super Mario Odyssey, and Splatoon 2. Life was great for like 2 weeks. I played those 3 games on rotation, non-stop, all day, every day, and eventually I just got tired of them. I felt like I had nothing to play for a while after that. Breath of the Wild had a superior port just sitting there on store shelves, but I couldn't raise the funds to buy a single game that was that expensive now either. This was actually a blessing in disguise. I didn't have a lot of money, but I loved the console and I wanted to play as many games on it as possible, and because of it, I ended up buying a lot of indies on the eShop because those games were simply more affordable for me. This is actually one of the greatest gifts the Nintendo Switch has given me personally. I never really explored the indie game world until exploring the incredibly slow Switch eShop, and I just fell in love with it. One of the first I played was Celeste, then I played Oxenfree, then eventually later on in that year came Dead Cells. The Switch was a fantastic system for indies. I mean, in like 2021 it felt like I knew at least 6 people with 500 hours each in Hades. But for me, the indie game that really left the biggest mark on me was Firewatch. I was coming up on a year with my Nintendo Switch at that point, and for all I loved it, it felt like a very expensive system to own. First party games were incredibly hard to get outside of birthdays and Christmas because I wasn't old enough to be earning any money, and Joy-Cons felt a bit like an accident waiting to happen. I remember loads of news stories at the time about drift, and I think there was even a lawsuit maybe. I might be misremembering. I don't know. I was really starting to question whether I even liked video games, and then one day I just randomly decided to get Firewatch. I was home alone, which made a non-horror game feel awfully terrifying, but it also helped make it one of the most engrossing experiences I've ever had with a video game. It's fairly short. I ended up playing it all in one sitting purely because I couldn't put it down, and it narratively destroyed me. I felt so much like I couldn't articulate why or what it was that I loved so much, but that Firewatch would go on to be one of the most important gaming experiences I've ever had. And it did. I think about that experience all the time. I still can't put my finger on what it was that I connected with so strongly though. Maybe I'll explore it someday. Eventually I got round to Breath of the Wild and a couple other big releases, but then for a few years, I dropped everything entirely. It wasn't by choice. I was becoming an adult and a very busy, very stressed, very unhappy one, and I felt like I had to give up video games on the whole because others told me I was wasting precious time. Time that suddenly felt so much more finite than before. So I did, for a few years actually. I lived a boring, high-stress life, and I didn't have an outlet anymore to relax, so I just never did, which made everything worse and worse, and I wasn't having the best time. A few games would release across all platforms that would draw me back to beat them, but then ultimately quit again, but one game in particular helped me to understand that I was never wasting my time to begin with, and helped me to fall in love with video games on the whole again. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. I have so many thoughts about this game and how important it was to me, and you can find them all in my Zelda video if you're interested, but just know that above all else, this game represented a bit of a turning point for me in understanding how I wanted to live my life moving forward. And a big part of that was finding time for the things that bring me comfort, and so over the last 2 years, I've been spending a lot more time on my Switch, playing catch up with all the games I missed in my hiatus like Metroid Dread or Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and I've been having so much fun. But actually, I think I've realised that while it might have been the games that brought me back to the Nintendo Switch, the thing I love the most about it is something else entirely. But we'll get to that. On this channel I talk a lot about my experiences and the things that are important to me, but in loving memory of the Nintendo Switch, I thought it'd be nice if we heard from some other wonderful creators too.
The original Switch is easily one of my favourite video game consoles of all time, so choosing a favourite moment in its history is incredibly difficult. It's either the Everyone Is Here reveal of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate back in June 2018, along with Ridley's long overdue inclusion as a fighter, or Metroid Dread's announcement and my subsequent playthrough on launch day. I legitimately don't think anything will ever top those two in terms of pure excitement for me, except, Half-Life 3, which is never going to happen. My favourite game for the Switch has to be Super Mario Odyssey. It's such a fun, creative return to the original style of 3D Mario platformers that was worth buying the console for alone. And I hope that whatever the developers decide to make next is just as good, if not better. There are many things that I'd love to see on Switch 2, but above all, I would love Nintendo to release new installments for some of their other major franchises. Star Fox, F-Zero, Kid Icarus, and Wario Land are just a few that haven't had titles in years and desperately need a revival. Even more importantly though, Devil's Third 2. Okay, Nintendo? Devil's Third 2.
Hi, I'm Miky, also known as Mikiato on YouTube. So the Switch 2 is finally upon us, and I think that's making a lot of us reflect on the Switch and its launch lately. It's making me reflect, at least, on my favorite game on the Switch, and one of my favorite games of all time, actually, which is Breath of the Wild. So I could gush about this game for like hours, but I don't have that much time, so I'm gonna make this brief. This game had such a profound impact on me that if it weren't for Breath of the Wild, I don't know if I would have gotten back into gaming the way that I did. I don't know if I would know about any of my other favorite games or other franchises. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure my YouTube channel would even exist if it weren't for this game. Breath of the Wild proved to me that games aren't just always a fun way to pass the time. They can actually make you feel something, you know? It also led me to broaden my horizons and try out other titles and other games that were capable of making me feel that same thing. I mean, not the exact same things. I don't know if you can technically replicate this experience, but you know what I mean. I'm excited for the potential prospects of the Switch 2, but none of us are ever going to forget the legacy console and its games that came before it. No chance.
Oh man, when it comes to the Switch, there have been so many cool moments over the years. The first thing that comes to mind immediately is the hype cycle for Smash Ultimate. I'm not really into Smash like that, but seeing all of the returning fighters and stages, and of course seeing the new fighters get revealed, was always awesome. The new fighter reveal trailers were always the highlight of every Nintendo Direct for me. Like, I remember screaming at the top of my lungs when Banjo-Kazooie was revealed in the 2019 E3 Direct, and just being utterly confused when Steve was revealed in 2020. But my favorite Switch game is probably Mario Odyssey. I just remember the day it came out, I begged my parents to let me buy it, and I just could not put it down after that. This is also the only game I have ever been interested in speedrunning, and to this day, I still keep up with the speedrunning scene. And yeah, I remember way back when Mitch got the first sub 58 in any percent. That was such a cool moment. But yeah, I've sunk so many hours into Mario Odyssey. It's a great game, and well, yeah, the Switch has had a great run, and I can't wait to see what the Switch 2 brings.
The thing I'll remember most fondly about the Nintendo Switch wasn't the games, or the Joy-Cons, or the John Cena marketing material. It's actually the feeling of belonging. I started this video by joking a lot about the Wii U, but I really loved that console. It wasn't great, but it was mine. But it also wasn't something at that age in school that you could be proud to own. None of my friends had it, so I couldn't play anything with anyone. It was ridiculed online to the point where if you owned one, you were sort of a laughingstock. Kids can be mean about silly things like that. They were mean about a lot more too, but it kinda sucked that the one thing I had to go home and find comfort in was yet another thing they would make fun of. It felt like Nintendo had gone from everybody's favourite gaming company to nobody's favourite but mine and 3 other people's overnight. Asking people over for a Mario Kart party wasn't the cool thing to do anymore, and I was just a bit of a loner because of it. But the Nintendo Switch came out, and at first, I was worried it would just be more of the same. But eventually we've gotten to the point where it feels like almost everyone has one, and almost everyone loves it. And all of a sudden I can play games with my friends on a Nintendo system again, without being made fun of. All of a sudden I've met wonderful people in wonderful communities surrounding games on this system, and all of a sudden I've found the confidence to reach out to 3 wonderful creators purely out of love for this console. And when I lost my love for this hobby and these franchises that once meant so much to me, it was the Switch that drew me back in. Nintendo might have lost their way for a little while there, but it really felt like they found their way back with the Nintendo Switch. And so did I. I'm scared for the future. I'm really nervous they're losing it again, especially with the pricing of the games and everything, and I'm really nervous that the Switch 2 might be another Wii U. But no matter what the future holds, the one thing I do know is that I loved the Nintendo Switch, and this silly little console means a lot more to me than Star Fox Zero on the Nintendo Wii U ever did. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much to Hysterian, Miky and SF for being a part of it. You can find their links in the description, and I very much recommend you check out their channels if you haven't already. They're each making some incredible stuff that I really think you'd like. Let me know what the Nintendo Switch means to you down below, and if you liked the video, please do consider sticking around and subscribing. It really means a lot.